straight from the garage. We outside again. Got a 1998 Chevy 1500 half-ton doing brakes. I wasn't gonna do a video, but I said, you know what, let me go ahead and do this video. As you can see, I already got basically everything taken care of, but I'll show you guys the old rotor. Was changing the brakes, and the rotor was just eaten into pretty bad on both sides. So we ended up having to go ahead and do the rotor. Let me see it. And this is what the brake looked like. And it was just on the passenger side, but come to find out the caliper was leaking. So we basically had to do a whole little setup on the passenger side. In this video though, the reason that I decided to do the video, I wanted to show you guys how to remove this rotor in case you have to replace it. And then I'll show you how to put the brakes back on so you can follow in the reverse order. So let me grab a couple tools and I'll be back. All right, y'all, so if you have to do one of these rotors, they don't just come off. Some of them do, some of them have the axle, but this is just a two-wheel drive, so it's got bearings in here. And in order to get the rotor off, first you got to pull this cap. So I'm just going to take a pair of channel locks, and mind you, I'm trying to do this with one hand. Get it on here, take that off. Now you can see when you take this off, you got a cotter key right here, and you have a bolt. This bolt shouldn't be too tight, so you can actually take it off with the channel locks. First thing you got to do is take this cotter key out. So let me take this cotter key out and I'll be back. All right, y'all, so I got the cotter key out. So now I told you this bolt's not too tight. All you're gonna do is just give it a turn or two, get it loosened up, and you can go ahead and take that bolt off. You wanna have a clean working surface if you're gonna reuse these bearings, because you don't wanna get no dirt or nothing on them. So just make sure you have somewhere you can put it down. I know a mechanic's rule of thumb is we just like to put it inside the cap. This makes it easy, especially working outside here in the elements. So just stick it right here in the cap. And now this rotor will move. I'm gonna try to do this with one hand. You can move that rotor, and you see the bearing will pop out. Put that in the cap. And now the rotor will come off. So let me take this rotor off and I'll be back. All right, so I got the rotor off here, as you can see. See, my camera's dirty, so I get that clean, but let me clean this camera and I'll come back. All right, so got the camera cleaned off. So this is where the rotor came off, and you can see this is the rear of the rotor. Now there's another bearing here. If you buy a new one, it's not gonna come with this bearing. So what I do, and there's other ways to do this, but I take the bolt, stick it right back on here, give it a couple turns, and then I'm gonna put the rotor back on over the bolt to get the rear off. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. Okay, set the rotor back on and then pop it off just like that. All right, now we'll get that greased. All right, y'all, so now I got this bearing out. I got my grease. I'm gonna go ahead and grease the bearing, and all I'm gonna do is just stick it in the grease and get it nice and greasy. It's best to just go ahead and do it while you got it out. It keeps the bearing lubricated and saves you problems in the long run. And to put it back in, nice and simple, I'm gonna take that same greasy bearing, I'll stick it in there between them. And it's a concave surface, so it'll go right in. And then you take your seal and you just stick your seal back there. Yeah, that's the right way. Sorry. And the seal kind of just seats right in there, and that just keeps the bearing from moving, but it should seat in there evenly. All right, y'all, so I put my bearing in on the back. I greased everything up real nice and greasy, and I just got my front bearing back in. You just want to make sure you grease everything because you want it to be nice and lubricated, because these are the bearings that your wheels ride on, so you want to keep them lubricated. And now what I'm going to do is just put the washer back on, put the cotter key back in, put the cap back on, and then I'll come back and we'll do the brakes. All right. So there's the finished product. So we got the bearings greased, we got the rotor on, cover that up, and now we're gonna do the caliper. So I told y'all I had to get a new caliper because the old one, once you let the brakes go so long, the piston will pop out, and once that piston pops out, you know, back in the day they used to rebuild them, but now we just buy new ones. So I'm gonna pull this out this bag. Here's your new caliper. And if you ever change a caliper, so I'll show you I put a pair of vice grips on this line. I don't like to do this because these lines, I believe they have a metal tube on the inside, but just to keep the brake fluid from going out, temporary fix, I just put that line on there, put that vice grips on there to keep the brake fluid from coming out. So all I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna have to use both hands, but I'll show you. Got a bleed screw right here. Not a bleed screw, the screw where the hose clamps in. The new caliper comes with new hardware. That's the screw I'm talking about with the crush washer. So I'll go ahead and put the caliper on, put the brake line back on, and we'll get everything lined up. All right, y'all, so we got our caliper on. You can see I got my brake line back here. It's notched, so it only goes in one way. So just pay attention to the notches and line it up. That's the new screw. That's the new crush washer. So now all that's left to do is put the brakes back on. Put the brakes on, and I'll go ahead and set them in and show you how they go in, and then we'll be back. All right, y'all, so we got our brakes on there. Left, right, you really can't mess that up. It's pretty easy. Got our brake line back in with both crush washers. There's a crush washer on the front and the back of this line, so make sure you put them both in. And now we'll just put our two bolts back in. Those are 3/8 millimeter hexes, and we'll get everything bled and back on the road. So hey, we do it all straight from the garage. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully this video helps somebody that's trying to do this job. You got any questions, leave them in the comments.